What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 2, My Little Rants. If you guys didn't check my last episode, we talked about going from 0 to 100K. If you don't know who I am, my name is Anthony Mancini. I've been selling for 3 years. Currently do 50 to 60K per month. Planning on blasting through 100K per month in the next coming months. I think I found the secret. Last episode, I went through 0 to 100K, how to go from 0 to 10, 10 to 50, 50 to 100. And, well, I would love to tell you the rest, but I'm not there. Let's get right into it. I want to talk about VAs. Why I think they are super important, but why I also think a lot of people shouldn't take them on too early into their business, right? So a VA, if you guys don't know, virtual assistant, usually people that we are going to hire from the Philippines for a pretty good rate, usually $3 to $5 an hour Canadian. I do think it's important to raise their pay with time, but you can definitely get one starting off for $3 to $5 an hour and train them from there. Now, let's start at the beginning. Let's go 0 to 10K, 10 to 50, 50 to 100, how you should use a VA in those three categories, right? So 0 to 10K, you should just not have a VA. It's simple as that. I talked about it on the last episode. You're basically in your tutorial mode. You are learning your things. You should be doing everything yourself. Maybe you can get away with a prep center if you have really a demanding full-time job and you still want to learn things. But in general, in my opinion, you should be doing everything hands-on. But now you're 10 to 50K, you're wondering, when should I get a VA? How should I get a VA? What should my VA be doing? There's so many things to learn. And, well, first things first, what determines when you should get a VA is your competency in training and your competency in the skill of Amazon FBA, right? And also how much cash you have. Because if you only have, let's say you're making $10,000 a month and you're investing $5,000 a month in inventory, well, you're not going to go and take on a full-time VA and start paying them nearly $1,000 per month Canadian, and they're not generating you that much revenue because you're not that good at sourcing, right? And don't get me wrong, they don't only need to be sourcing. They need to be sourcing. They need to be doing some bookkeeping. They need to be doing how many things does he do for me? Updating your cost of goods sold in your repricer, updating your cost of goods sold in your seller board. There's so many things a VA can do and help you buy back your time, but there's always a time and place. Pros and cons of hiring a VA earlier on into your 10 to 50K journey. Well, your pros is that you're going to develop a better relationship with your VA. You're going to develop a trust factor a year, 2 years down the road, where some people are maybe hiring their VA later on when they're making 50, 60K per month, well, they're not ready to pass on purchasing to them. My VA does all my purchasing. I trust him. It's been 2 years now that I hired him. So why not have the trust in him that he's not going to go and steal capital? But that's because I hired him extremely early on. And people say, Anthony, you hired your VA too early. And the answer to that is absolutely right. I hired him too early. And I think that I sacrificed a lot of margins early on, a lot of profit. But fast forward to June 2024, and I think it's worth every single penny, because that money lost, that margin lost, was all training, where now my VA is a 10 times better sourcer than me, pumps out 10 to 15 solid leads per day that I may choose like 5 to 7 because I'm extremely picky. And then we go very deep into them, and he pays himself off 10 times over, to be honest. And that's because I gave him basically 2 years of learning, of me sacrificing margins while me giving him constant feedback. And also we're learning together, right? If you start at 10K and you hire your first VA, again, you got to be willing to realize that you're losing margins, you're losing money if you do this. But you hire him at 10K. Well, 1 year later, if you 5X, then now you're at 50K. Well, you have 1 year training with that VA. And with constant feedback. But that's what's also important. We're going to talk about the training in a few minutes. I just want to talk about, again, the pros and cons of hiring early or not. And where the pro is that if you spend a lot of time training and giving feedback to your VA, he's going to pay himself off in 12 months. The con, like I said, it's going to cost you a lot of money early on. It's going to cost you margin, and it's not going to help you grow if you don't have a lot of capital. If you have 10 to 15K capital, and the only reason you're at 10K sales per month is because you're still in the learning process, and capital is not necessarily a restraint yet, and you're willing, and you're someone who is a coach in general, then yeah, I think you could and should hire a VA and really go through that learning process with them, because you're going to be learning, you're going to be making mistakes, he's going to be learning, or she's going to be learning, she's going to be making mistakes. And yeah, it's going to cost your business money, but as long as you keep going with consistency, it's going to pay off. If you're not someone who's really good at coaching, who's not really good at creating SOPs, yeah, you should definitely wait, buddy. You should wait till you have now more capital, more money, and not enough time, where a VA can now help you save time. Right? So now you did 10 to 50K, 50K plus, you should have a VA, right? In my opinion. You could do everything yourself. Absolutely. I'm a big favor, like I did my rant on last video on bringing prep in-house. Saving margins is super important. But the thing is that there is only a limited time, a limited amount of hours in the day, right? How my schedule kind of looks like is I wake up, I have, depending on the day, I have a meeting with my VA because it's nighttime for him. Then I do a little bit of reviewing his leads. I go train jiu-jitsu and train my weight training for around 3 hours. I come back around 1, 2 p.m. I start prepping until around 5, 6 p.m. And then 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., I'm with my girlfriend. 9 p.m., we're watching TV, we relax, we have supper. And from 9 p.m. to around midnight, I'm now back on my computer doing my own sourcing and doing all types of admin work that my VA also does, right? So my day is limited. How do you want me to spend 8 hours updating cost of goods sold, sourcing, purchasing, filtering my emails? I don't have time to do all that. And I have the profit from the business. So I might as well invest that profit into human capital, which is EVA. And if you haven't done so yet, up to 50K, now's the time. I think that it's going to save you at least 20 hours in the week. Like if we're hiring a VA for 40 hours, and let's be honest, they're not going to be working 40 hours, they're still going to save you minimum 25 hours a week if you train them well, right? And at this point, if you're at 50K, and I said that if you're at 10 in the lower end of it and around 10K and you're a great coach, yeah, you should go ahead and hire a VA because you can coach them for a year. Well, now if you're at 50K and you're not a great coach, I still think you should hire a VA, as long as you're very specific with the tasks that need to be done, right? You don't need to hire a VA full time. A lot of people hire a VA for 40 hours. That's something I did regret doing, even though I think it paid off near the end. But you should hire maybe for 20 hours. Start off with just some admin work, right? Just some cost of goods sold, and teach them slowly how to find leads or how to review leads, or have them. There's so many things you can do with VAs. That's the beautiful part. You can have them only be doing admin, only be filtering your emails, your cost of goods sold on Sellerboard and Selleramp, etc. And then while you're doing that, you have a week or 2 meetings, 1 to 2 meetings per week, while you're now reviewing leads and you're trying to teach them. And then over the months, maybe 3 months down the line, you're like, okay, now we're going to add on a couple of hours to your week, and maybe we're going to add on sourcing. There's so many avenues, and every single business, not only Amazon business, should be having VAs, right? I even heard, I think it was on Chris Grant's podcast, that dentist offices are now having secretaries. Instead of having inhuman secretaries, they're having a screen, and it's a VA that is there because it's costing them less money, right? You have access to something that's going to cost you $800 to $1,000 a month Canadian, working full-time, 40 hours per week, finding you ASINs, eventually buying these ASINs, updating your cost of goods sold, doing your email filters, doing your bookkeeping. Come on. It's a no-brainer, right? And then 50 to 100K, like I said, at this point, like if you don't have a VA, you must be doing a lot of work yourself, because it just doesn't make sense not to have a VA in that 50 to 100K mark, right? So that was a little bit, hopefully, let's just do a little recap. 0 to 10K, you should not be having a VA. You're in tutorial mode. In the lower ends of 10 to 50K, it really depends on your personality type. Are you a coach? Are you not a coach? How much money do you have? Are you willing to sacrifice money for that experience? Think about these big employers like Walmart, etc. It costs them money every time they hire an employee, because all the training that goes into that employee is human capital, which in this case, it's yourself, right? Your human capital, your time is going into training this employee. If you don't have that competency, you should not be hiring in that lower 10K bracket. Now you go near that 50K bracket. Now you start saying, like, listen, I think you absolutely should be hiring a VA, if not for sourcing, at least for admin. And then 50K plus, I do think at this point, depending how skilled you are in sourcing, why not add a VA for sourcing? And also, this is where things get controversial but when should you be hiring a purchasing manager, right? When should your VA should be actually executing the purchases for you? Well, this is where hiring very early on plays a huge role, and it's because the trust factor is there. And people always ask me, like, Anthony, why would your VA not steal from you, right? We're buying, I don't know, like $60,000 to $100,000 of leads per month. Wouldn't it be easy for him to sneak in a personal purchase here and there? Well, two things. One, we're bookkeeping, right? So as long if we're doing constant bookkeeping, actually I have three things. If we're doing constant bookkeeping, we're gonna find that transaction relatively early on. Certainly, if you're doing it on a month-to-month basis, and if you only have one VA, the culprits is there. If you only have one VA that has access to your credit cards, like obviously it's him. And then two, I tend to actually tell those people, like, okay, why don't you steal from your job? I used to work for a liquor business. I was a director of sales, and basically I had all the trust in the world. I had access to all the money that was being deposited, and access to all the orders. I could have stole thousands of dollars, and maybe nobody would have even noticed. But why didn't I do it? Because I wanted to keep my job. I didn't have, at the time, I didn't have Amazon that I knew that was going to be so big. And either way, I don't want to go to court or anything. Even though, yes, these guys are in Philippines, you're not going to be able to bring them to court. They want to work for you. Understand that if you pay them well, right? Maybe at the beginning you're not paying the best, but to the point where they're becoming a purchasing manager, I'm hoping that you increase their pay. And now, if they're making to the point where now they don't have to drive traffic to their corporate job anymore, they're making the same amount, if not more, than their old corporate job, and they're happy with you. Why in the world would they want to steal from you and ruin that opportunity that they have for themselves to create a fulfilling life? And also, like, again, like I said, traffic is horrible in the Philippines. They're gonna be able to save all that time and then get more money for it. So I really don't think that a relationship, a well made relationship with your VA and time will solve all your problems. Now the problem is when you're at 50 to 100K and you now want to hire someone to do your purchasing, because purchasing becomes so time consuming. Certainly when, example, Walmart has a max quantity of 6 and you want to go 200 deep, well, now you're starting to have, and maybe that product maybe costs $4, so you have to add other products into that cart to have it that minimum the minimum buy price for free shipping, right? Things can get very long and very time consuming to purchase products. And now you want to hire that VA to purchase those products, but you don't have any relationship with them. That's when it becomes a little bit hard, because you want to onboard a brand new employee and then give him access to your credit cards. That's a big no-no in my opinion. So that's kind of where I circle back to the beginning of the video, where I say, like, hiring early on will cost you more money, but if you churn through your employees, or maybe mine ended up being my first employee was fantastic. I have experience in hiring, so I didn't really have much of a problem to find them. But if certainly at the beginning you're not maybe the best, or you don't have experience, you can churn through your employees until you find the right one. Then you find the right one and you last a year with them. I'm willing to bet that you're going to have enough confidence and trust into them that you can then start trusting them with purchasing. And then how that works is a whole different story, because then you start going deep into SOPs, and like, because when it comes to purchasing and spending thousands of dollars, things need to be done very precise, and they're obviously there's always going to be mistakes, but there needs to be the least amount of mistakes possible, right? It's a big thing. How to do that? Well, I don't think I have time in this video necessarily to go over all my SOPs with VAs, and I can definitely do that in the future if you want me to leave a comment if you want to do that, if you want to know that. But in general, you really need to have orders, like sourcing lead sheets, your buy sheets, your bookkeeping. Everything needs to be A1 if you have your VA purchasing for you. But at that point, guys, you're almost free to do what you want, because now when I wake up in the morning, I have a list of, like I said, around, it varies, 8 to 15 leads from my VA. I maybe will select five to 8. I take care of the replans just because he has so much on his plate and I love to replan. Then I'll add on my replans, and we're spending $10,000 a day, relatively easy. And in those $10,000, I don't know, the transaction, it varies, depends the ASIN that we buy, but we can go from something simple to like 20 to like 40 transactions to buy all that $10,000 worth of inventory, depending on order limits. And that can say, like, what takes me max an hour in the morning while I take my coffee will take my VA I don't know, 3 hours to order. So that's 3 hours in my day that's completely saved, and that allows me to go work out and do jujitsu, etc. So that's why I think a VA is so important for your business. I hear the controversy online is, again, always, should you hire a VA early on or not? A lot of people hire on VAs too early when they don't know how to source. I'm not going to repeat myself because we're already 15 minutes in, but just to do a quick roundup again, I don't think, in my opinion, you really need to be the best at sourcing before you hire a VA if you have the capital, because you're going to learn at the same time as the VA, and this VA is learning at the same time as you, right? So the better you get, the better the VA gets. And it all depends on your communication, because, of course, if you're learning bad things, I'll give you an example, right? I'll give you a little sneak peek at, in my opinion, what controls the buy box. Hopefully you've been listening 15 minutes in and you get this nice little secret. I always thought it had to do with reviews. And I do still think reviews play a role in your buy box ownership, but it's far less of a role than I thought. What actually plays a huge role in buy box ownership, in my opinion, is your stock level. And if a specific ASIN will sell 100 times a month, if you only have 20 in stock, you're only going to get a small percentage of the buy box, because Amazon knows that you can't fulfill as great as the other seller who has 200 in stock, right? So they're going to give the buy box more to that seller. So that was a quick little example on things that maybe I learned at the beginning. I thought, okay, review. That's all that's important. So if there was a big review seller on it, I wanted to stay away from there. But in reality, that big review seller is hiding their inventory and is showing that they only have 6 in stock, but they might have 200 in stock, and that's the reason that they have a lot. And if your VA now starts believing that it only has to do with reviews, and you never communicate with them your learnings on, hey, by the way, we thought it was reviews, has absolutely nothing to do with it. Yeah, it might play a little role, but the majority of the buy box percentage gets distributed to stock level. Well, now he's learning or she's learning at the same time as you, and you get to grow together. And then 1, 2, 3 years down the line, you create this formidable relationship that will allow you to really scale to heights that you can't even imagine. And I know for some of you guys, I might say 1, 2, 3 years, and you're like, Jesus, I'm in my first year. What are you talking about? Like, thinking 3 years down the road, I can't. You want to be in this business for a year? You want to be in the business for 10, 15 years plus, right? Sacrificing capital to teach an employee for 1 year that will pay off for the next 15 years. That's a positive ROI in my books. It worked for me. Might not work for everybody. You do need to have that competency. And I think I will make more videos in the future talking about how to train VAs, SOPs on VAs, communicating with VAs. And I say VAs, at the end of the day, they're employees like any other employee, right? They're humans. They have ambitions. They have goals. They have needs. They all need to be met. And then once you create that amazing relationship between you and your employee, sky's the new limit. So that's where I'm going to end this video. I think I ranted enough on VAs, 18 minutes. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys want other videos, just leave ideas in the comments. I have a lot of ideas, so I think these videos are not going to stop. They're always going to be in this ADHD format where I'm bouncing off the walls, but hopefully you guys enjoy it. Let me know in the comments, all right?